Hello, MarTechers. My name is Juan Mendoza. I'm the CEO of the MarTech Weekly. I'm excited to be here with Vishnu Vankayala. He is the CEO of Customer Labs, amazing CDP platform based in India. Now, we're going to have a discussion called The CDP is for Everyone. And we really want to unpack the power and potential of customer data platforms for businesses of all shapes and sizes, not just the enterprise. So, Vishnu, thank you for joining me. How are you doing today?
Hey, Ewan, nice to meet you after a long time. And all good. Business as usual.
Great. So my first question for you is, how do the capabilities of customer data platforms extend beyond enterprise level operations? What are the advantages that are on offer for small and medium-sized businesses to start to really gain value from adopting customer data platforms? It seems like something very complex and very sophisticated for a small business, but maybe it's not. Tell me more.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very big misconception with everyone right now. So CDP is only for non-starters. Maybe CDP is for enterprises. That's maybe we have to agree one point of time. But if you just break the CDP into multiple pieces, CDP does only two things, right? So one, it collects the data from multiple places, starting with the website, starting with CRM, etc. And it creates a 360-degree profile of a user, and it activates the data in multiple places. Now, if you recently had a look at Google's article about AI essentials, so if someone wants to run an ad inside Google, these are the foundation someone has to go through. They clearly mention about 5 things. So first one is installing a Google tag, which actually sends the signals back into Google Ads platform. And the second one is enhanced conversions. So push all the conversion data back into Google Ads. Third, value of those conversions. So for example, who is the good customer? And the third one is Google Analytics connections. Fourth one is adopting the customer match so that you create a list of people and you would be able to do it. Now, if you want to run a basic Google Ads stuff, this is the data the AI needs, and a platform which basically helps someone to get all these things together, make it easy to collect the data and push it, is nothing but a CDP. So that's how it is. Whether it is a big customer or a small customer, they eventually need to start somewhere. So everyone really needs a CDP going forward. That's the whole point. So no matter big, small, if you run a website, if you have a Google Ads, you definitely need a CDP to get this data together and get the maximum out of Google or Facebook going forward.
And why now? With customer data platforms have been for 6-7 years. Is the reason why a lot more small businesses are getting into this space and actually trying to use CDPs, is it because the technology is easier to use now, or is it because of the need of something else? I'd love to hear your views on that.
Again, 5-6 years ago, we were in business as well. And when you go to a small business and convince that you need to look at the vision, you need to collect the data, no one honestly bothered to look into that. Now, the problem is the third-party cookie is going away. The iOS started doing the push across the privacy, and the GDPR, CCPA, all these things started pushing around. And the kind of data what the Google or Facebook or the ad platforms in particular was able to collect freely, now it's not possible to do it. You have to agree as a business, this is the data I want to send to Google. The user has to agree, this is the data I want to share with you so that you can in turn share with the others. So the decision now moving towards the business and eventually moving towards the individual customer. So when that's the case, 1, 2, 3, that steps. Eventually, Google says, okay, fine, please send whichever the data is entirely consented, and based on the data, we will train. So that's actually started pushing all the ad platforms to say, please send your data, which is only consented, which is only given by the user. So that's the need right now.
Fantastic. And I look at the space around privacy and the whole change to using first party data and advertising. And yeah, a lot of small businesses would be very much in trouble because of particularly if you are in e-commerce or you are doing a lot of volume of new customers coming into your business. You have to learn all these new data practices with using first party data for advertising. And a lot of small businesses do the basic stuff. They do custom audiences and they do abandoned cart targeting, and they have employed the Facebook pixel onto their website, and they've done a lot of the basic things. But what's sort of possible out there for the small business with the CDP beyond those sort of basic use cases and campaigns?
Yeah. See, now we are now working with a lot of healthcare providers in the US, and recently there is a HIPAA compliant started coming up, and all the data about PHI, the personal health information, and PII cannot be shared with advertising platforms just like that. So you need to control everything what you share. So at any given point of time, you cannot triangulate that particular information to individual people. All are small clinics, no background of tech, no background of performance marketing, but they still has to run ads to bring the clients to them, no matter what. And if that's the case, how would they be able to be compliant, right? They still have to push the data between the tools, but without compromising on the HIPAA, and still be able to train that algorithms, bring the data. In this particular instance, as a CDP, how we are helping is you get all the data from the customer, no matter what, and whichever the data you decide to send to Facebook, whichever the data you decide to send to Google, you would be able to only do that. So that's how we are helping those people. Now, from non-compliant to compliant in less than a week, because they have more control inside the CDP of which data they want to send and which data they don't want to send. So that's exactly how we are helping them as a small businesses. So one such example. And similarly, if you look at finance people, so who is making eventually financial transactions in UK, that's a bigger deal as well, because you cannot share your information. You only be able to target them with XYZ. So all these controls the businesses need, and that's what provided by CDP in one single place.
Yeah, it just does seem like there's so much more there than just your typical abandoned cart retargeting. But it's not just the use cases. There's also the analytics. It's the insight. There's correct me if I'm wrong here, but when you're using first party data and advertising, perhaps you're getting a better view of conversions as well because they're using the same format of data across the ad tech platforms, along with your own e-commerce systems, your own email marketing. So perhaps it's better for attribution. Can you shed some light on that, just around how it supports analytics, attribution, and just understanding where the money's coming from, so to speak?
See, when you run these ads, primarily there are two sets of ads any marketer runs. One, creating awareness about your business. For example, we are a customer labs. We run multiple activities to create awareness that customer labs exist. So, awareness, and someone lands on the website, we'd be able to eventually retarget them and nurture them, saying why we are still the best. Right? These are the two steps. Now, if you land on the customer apps and we don't know from where you have landed, eventually what happens is we won't be able to double down on the experiment to create awareness at the top funnel. To do this, the major problem which happened with iOS or any other places is server-side cookie. So the iOS and other platforms, what started doing is when you land on the website, they will simply delete those cookies after 1 day and sometimes after 7 days. So which means your session, which happened 7 days ago, is now entirely gone. So you are there as a unique user, but you haven't converted. That's what the system says, but you would have become a converted user. Now, if I have to attribute to the original channel which actually created that website visit, I won't be able to do it because I lost the connection. To do this, now the server-side tracking and server-side cookies is what now evolving at this point. And now with server-side tracking, server-side cookie would be able to attach all those things. Now, when you send this conversion information back into Facebook or Google, they would be able to attach the information which has created that first visit. So, which means they would be able to give credit to the campaigns inside the platforms properly, and the AIs would be able to learn better from the whole tracking journey. So that's how the attribution is going to change in the future.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, I want to shift to some horror stories. If you don't mind sharing a few stories where working in this space, getting first-party data sorted for advertising, you're in a small business. What are some of the horror stories that you see? Some of the challenges and pain points in this space of getting it right? It seems like it's still fairly early and there's a lot of complexity, but yeah, what have you seen?
I mean, there are 2, 3 instances, right? So one, they spend a lot of money. So there is a business who we are going to meet in a couple of days. They spend $300,000 on Facebook a month. And if you look at the tracking is so messed up. You get half of it, and half of it doesn't get tracked inside the Facebook, right? And it's a real struggle for them to scale the campaigns because they have like 25 different campaigns. They have literally no idea which campaign is actually providing incremental value, which does it. And they are still on Shopify. The Shopify still pushes the data, but still half of it is actually missing because the moment they incorporate an add-on or they want to try new things, automatically the Shopify default tracking actually fails in that instance. So this is the basic conversion tracking is actually missing. The second thing is they have a good repeat rate of customers, right? So people coming in, it's a health related product. People comes in and they don't buy it in an instant. So we call it single session purchases. People don't buy single session purchases. They need some time to think whether it is the right product for me or not. Especially in this case, it's a health related product. And they spend a lot of money on top funnel campaigns. So you keep pumping the money on top funnel campaigns again and again, again and again. And people come and they take a lot of time, they churn, they leave. And creating that custom audiences, targeting those high intent audiences is a very primary area. And they don't have a structure to retarget those high intent audiences who came to the site in the last 3 months, last 6 months, or even last 9 months. Considering the kind of business it is, you would eventually want to keep those high intent audiences into it. So these are the areas where most of the businesses struggle to understand how to structure the campaigns going forward. So earlier it was a different ball game. Now it's a different ball game with all this data. So people are trying to put things together. The performance marketers trying to put things together. Okay, now that I have this data, how do we use it? I have this first party data. How do I use it? So these are the multiple ways we are trying to solve the problem for the small medium businesses, pretty much.
Yeah, there are quite a few horror stories in there, and there is just so much to working through how first party data is being used in advertising. I think a lot of companies are still learning. Even the top of the town, large enterprise businesses are still learning and figuring out how to best use this data appropriately to protect users' privacy, but also and also just like where the technology sits in the MarTech stack is one of those big issues. But I want to circle back a little bit and talk about the misconceptions surrounding CDPs. Notably, the belief among some marketers that CDPs are only suitable for some kinds of companies. And this whole conversation is about there should be a CDP for everyone, right? And every company should have a CDP at some point. But what factors contribute to this, and how can it be overcome? What do you think? Is that the right way to think about CDPs, or are there some businesses that it just does not apply to at all?
I mean, like I said, the CDP should be primarily get the data from multiple places and give the marketer the whole access, whichever the place they want, they would be able to use the data. You can name that as conversions, you can name that as audiences, you can name that as reporting. That's the vision what we have. So you don't have to go to the tech team all the time. Hey, I want this data. I want to send this data elsewhere and do it. So if you have that in mind, and we are now calling that as first party data ops. So starting from tracking a conversion on the website, someone clicking on the button, someone filling a form on the website, that is a tracking, and creating the audiences, testing those audiences in multiple ad platforms, doing the incremental test, doing the retargeting campaigns based on the platforms. That's another thing. And looking at the analysis, even inside the GA4, looking at the analysis, looking at the break evens, the form funnels, that is also data activation. All these things combined together, we call it as first party data ops. So without the right data, you're not going to scale your campaigns, you're not going to reach to the right customers. So to put it that simply, any business definitely needs to start with first party data ops. Without that, there's going to be a lot of struggle going forward. And you don't have to be a big customer or big company to adopt a CDP. So whether you want to call it as a CDP or whether you want to call it as XYZ, it doesn't matter. But the first party data ops is very, very important. And ideally, any CDP you choose should provide you that first party data ops. That's the idea.
First party data ops. So this
That's
whole
right.
concept of figuring out where the CDP sits within the business, but it's an operational part of the business as well. So it's thinking through whether or not, what kinds of operations you actually need to make it happen, because first party data just doesn't appear in your CDP, it doesn't just appear in your networks. It actually requires coordination within a business, either with logistics
Exactly.
or transactions, or even with your finance team. You need to figure out, where is this data coming from? How are we going to use it? So I like that. It's that, figuring out, CDPs can be suitable for most organizations, because CDPs don't just extend to advertising. They extend to any sort of use case where you need to send customer data around a business to deliver things. But then also, you actually have to have an operational perspective on it as well. Can you tell me a bit more about privacy? Now, first party data is clearly one of those areas that is growing a lot in the face of third party cookie deprecation, but where third party cookies are going away for a reason. And it's because of consumer privacy concerns, because of legislation, and then big tech platforms increasingly worried about how much data is being shared about the average person on their websites and on their apps and devices. Now, I want to understand from you, what should marketers and small business be thinking about when it comes to data privacy? Should it be on their radar, and how should they be thinking about it?
No, I mean, I think it's default. We have to have options for the users to decide, okay, use this data here, use this data for this particular purposes, and don't use this data for this particular purposes. And if you look at Google, Google has released something called Google Consent Mode V2 next month. It's going live in EU. The primary way they're segregating the user permissions into 6 different options: ad storage, ads personalization, for analytics purpose. So there are 6 different buckets that people are actually choosing. So you can give a very specific information. Okay, you can use my data for ads personalization. You can use my data for analytics personalization. So that's how they are segregating the data. Now, when it comes to marketers, they have to collect this data for every single user when they land on the website, and they have to pass this data back into Meta or Google, so that these platforms would be able to process this data further. In Meta, similarly, there is something called LDU, limited data use. And if the user is saying, okay, fine, don't use my data for you are learning or training their algorithms. They have to respect that. And as a business, it's your user, and the user tells you, "Hey, don't send this data to Facebook," and you have to convey that to the Facebook in the background. So this is where the privacy gets really interesting, I would say. Um, you have to have a lot of control towards every single thing about what the user sees. It's about email marketing. You have to have a control. It's about setting a cookie. You have to have a control. It's about sending a WhatsApp message. You have to have a control. Without these controls, you won't be able to achieve what you want. You cannot blanketly say stop everything. At the same time, you cannot blanketly say accept everything. So giving those controls is very important. That's what the privacy is all about, and respecting the decisions in that particular channel.
So
When it comes to CDP, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask you that. So a lot of this is actually about governance and control,
That's right.
making sure that you have that control and the levers in your business to know, well, in the first case, just understanding where your data is and how it's being used, which is
Yeah,
even for small businesses is even hard, right? Is it like, where
that's
is
right.
it? You know, is there a bunch of CSVs sitting on someone's desktop? Is it sitting in MailChimp? Is it sitting in Shopify? Is it connected somehow? Is it, how much, just even the visibility is the first step, I think, in a lot of, for small businesses figuring out how to manage data privacy. So yeah, it's a good call out data governance and thinking through that.
Yeah. And when it comes to CDP, CDP gives that power of individual data and individual customer. You can decide if the customer says, don't share my data with this particular platform, you switch off one toggle, automatically it stops sending the data. And that's the control what marketer needs, because he has to make the decision in real time, pretty much when he's running a campaign. He doesn't have to wait for the developer to do all the stuff for him and then launch a campaign after 2 months. He just lost it. So that's the way we are positioning it, and we are seeing the how CDPs can actually help uh, marketers to achieving the maximum privacy compliance.
Now, lastly, I wanted to ask you about some customer success stories, right? And thinking through, okay, well, there are some fantastic smaller businesses that are really competing with larger companies purely because they're able to harness the power of CDPs and first-party data for growth and advertising. But I want to give you an opportunity to help sort of tell the story where companies are integrating between data collection, audience segmentation, and reporting to make an impact to small business. Do you have a story which sort of brings these three aspects together: collection, the actual enrichment, segmentation of the audience, and also reporting and measurement as well?
So we recently onboarded a customer, um, a big customer based in Dubai, and uses multiple platforms like Facebook, um, website, CRM, and stuff like that. Right. Um, we have been speaking with them since November, and can you take a wild guess how fast we'll be able to onboard them? How long it have taken to onboard them? Wild guess with all the articles coming around.
I'm going to take a guess. 2 weeks, 14 days. That's my guess.
No, it just took 2 days, and we are able to onboard them, bring the data, started creating profiles, started pushing the data back into Facebook and Google Ads for conversion tracking. So purely 2 days and zero development effort, we are able to go live pretty much. This is the primary stuff. What they did not have before the CDP is full visibility of how many leads. They have a visibility of how many leads they're generating, but they don't have a visibility of how many leads they generated from the Facebook became opportunity. How many leads they have generated from the Google became an opportunity. Now, to do that, you have to push the data from the CRM back into ad platforms. So this is one of the biggest success story what we have seen. Similarly, insurance company in Canada, they again, it's not an impulsive buy product, so they need to have the audiences retargeted, nurtured. What they were able to do, they were generating a lead at $31 per lead. And when they started doing the retargeting, they are able to bring the lead cost to $14. Just because they are able to retarget the high intent customers who came to the website, who have been reading the blogs, and be able to retarget them. And that's something what we have been looking at in terms of custom audience creation and retargeting. And if you look at the other business, which is based in India, one of the e-commerce, they started focusing on new customers and returning customers, sub-segment those people, started training Facebook with the new customers' data. That's they are able to see because they wanted to focus more on generating new customers business than the repeat customer wants through Facebook. And for that, they had to push all the data back into their BigQuery, create the attribution reports, saying, okay, which platform is bringing more new customers, which platform is bringing more return customers. And based on that, they created those segments and started pushing the data back into Facebook for bringing more new customers. So basically, they're training their algorithm in the background. So this is how they are seeing it. In terms of real numbers for these e-commerce customers, when they started doing the retargeting, they have started seeing almost 13% revenue lift in the last year alone. The contract renewal is coming out next month. So we had to do all this analysis, and literally 13% of the revenue came from the audiences which have been created in the platform. That's the kind of impact what they're seeing in real time, pretty much.
Fantastic. Well, Vishnu, it has been a fantastic conversation thinking through how the CDP really applies to all businesses of shapes and sizes. And we've covered everything from data privacy to competing with the enterprise to building data operations, first-party data operations in business. It's fantastic. But do you have any last thoughts before we wrap up?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I'm seeing is people expecting Facebook and Google to go and work like before without the right data structure. And when they say, hey, Vishnu, we want to start this thing and we want to do the retargeting, I say, you haven't collected the data. You don't have the data to start. You have to start from the scratch, because the moment the user left your website, there is no way you're going to have the data. So where they're thinking too much, they have to have some kind of plan to immediately start collecting the data, or else once they lose it, they lost it forever. You are not going to get it back.
Yeah. Well, this is Juan Mendoza, the CEO of the MarTech Weekly, signing off. My guest is Vishnu Vankayala. Hopefully I got that right.
Yeah.
I'll start that again. Well, that's a wrap. I'm your host, Juan Mendoza, the CEO of the MarTech Weekly. I'm here with the CEO of Customer Labs, Vishnu Vankayala. So thank you so much for joining me. And yeah, we really hope that you enjoyed this conversation.